Anna, you didn't have black on today. You want to wear my vest?
Bill has something to talk about now.
Oh. I forgot.
Your sister will.
It's
Does it?
Linda and Phyllis,
Okay.
dude's girl. But now Debbie watches too.
See Bobby. It's the only guy I can sit in the back row I can see.
Well, take that as a compliment.
I know where Tony sits. Great. Okay, we're going to continue this morning. Matthew chapter 19. A few topics here. We always look at this guy.
Hey, thanks for holding up.
Buddy, I was waiting on you. I know how.
They live so far away.
Traffic bad.
Duties to do. We had great-grandchildren. Oh.
And red lights and stop signs. Huh?
Going from Knox Street to Clayton, it's like it's going through Chicago.
You got it, Mark.
Crazy. Hey,
Let the car warm up.
there you go. Throw me a picture up there, Sam. Just to get started here. This is really not a whole lot of importance to the final lesson here. But I do want to talk to you about it. I want this up there. We've talked about a few of these. This is sort of a picture geographically of the when Jesus was alive, right? Jesus was around, right? I want to read the first scripture and get us started, okay? So I'm going to not waste too much time. Chapter 19. And it came to pass that when Jesus had finished these sayings, remember last week he was talking to them about forgiveness, right? When Jesus had finished these sayings, he departed from Galilee, came into the coast of Judea beyond Jordan. All right, now this is fun. Beyond Jordan, you hear that a lot in the scripture. Beyond Jordan or Transjordan or etc. Where the heck is that? Okay, well this is really cool. If you don't know, you'll read it on your own. Look at that. I'm sure this battery's still working. Just make sure. Seems like you're using this last. Okay. All right. Here you go. This is Sea of Galilee, remember? Up here. This is Capernaum. Right here's Nazareth. Here is Samaria. Now, the Jews don't think too much of Samaritans, right? But here's Jerusalem down here, right? You got Jerusalem, Bethlehem, all those places you're familiar with. And then we got this place over here. We talked about this a couple weeks ago. I'm trying to hurry. Remember a couple weeks ago we talked about Herod Antipas. And then we had Philip. And then we had their brother who was not a good boy. And they kind of got in trouble and they replaced him with what? Pilate. Remember? So down here, Pilate, he's kind of running the show. Up here was Antipas. That's the way you say it. There's this other place right here called Perea. You see it? Apparently a strip of land 10 miles wide by 50 miles long. I don't know anything about that. But there's a certain importance about this place right here. This, first of all, is the Jordan River. See that? It goes down, feeds the Dead Sea. The Jews did not go through Samaria. How they get to Jerusalem? They went through Perea, right? So what happens instead, they just say, hey, I'll get on the quick boat, run over here, go through it. There's a road. There is at least one road. Through Perea, right? Still Roman managed place. But anyway, I just wanted to point that out to you. Just because that's what they call Transjordan. Over Jordan, right? That's what they mean. I didn't know that. If they said over Jordan. That's what they're talking about. On the other side of Jordan, that's how they get there. Jerusalem, they take that Route 23. Right? Reading, writing, Route 23. Huh? Good deal. Listen, that's the only picture I got today. The rest of it you're going to have to do all here. All right? But Jesus is heading down from Galilee to Jerusalem. Heading that way. A few weeks he'll be there. We'll be there. In Scripture. Okay. Great multitudes followed him. This is verse 2. And he healed them there. Well, that's like a surprise, right? Multitudes. Following Jesus, wherever he's at, they're going to be there, right? All kinds, all sorts, all ages. Okay? The Pharisees, I'm trying to refresh. The Pharisees, they always have to be in the multitude, don't they? They have to be seen, have to be heard, have to be what? Challenging Christ. And it's usually on all the old law, right? Remember, they think Christ came to destroy the law. We know he came to fulfill the law. And over the past few weeks, he continues to reference the law, even in his arguments to the Pharisees, right? But they have this tendency of abusing the law, right? Traditionally speaking, even. Okay, let me go. Pharisees also came unto him, to Jesus, okay? Tempting him and saying unto him, is it lawful for a man to put away his wife for every cause? Okay, now, guess what we're going to talk about? What's it mean when you put away your wife? Now, this time, divorce is a new thing. It's been around for quite a while. I can point you to some scripture. If we go back in Deuteronomy, you'll see where Moses, right? Even though in the beginning God created male, female, put them together, there's a contract, right? To be one forever. That's the way God intended it to be. Well, divorce became something that believe it or not, the women became targets. I mean, you go to lunch and, well, not go, okay, say you go to somewhere and you didn't like the way it happened, well, you just divorce her. And most of the time, the majority of the time, it was the men who did the putting away. Right? You didn't usually find the women putting away their husband.
Men had to pay for it all, too.
Okay. So back in Moses' day, right? Moses said, "No, come on now, let's slow things down a little bit." And he imposed what they call a written divorce, right? Written. You're going to have to at least go do a little paper. Then all of a sudden, lawyers, they got, right? And Judge Judy, and the next one, right? But that was sort of the history back in the Old Testament, with Moses. Well, that obviously became something that another one of those laws, right, put in place that they began to abuse. Because notice the word here says, is it lawful for a man to put away his wife? Let's just say divorce, okay? Divorce his wife for every cause? Meaning what? I don't like, she can't cook. I thought she was a better cook than that. She burnt the beans. Potatoes are raw. Doesn't clean my house wood. There you go. Things like that, right? Those are just examples, right? We are having a little fun, but it's true. It's true, right? Now, we talked today, and there are numbers, right? Mark's even read them, right? Of the numbers today, if we measured, and that's just because there's internet, social media, and everybody talks about, right? The magnitude of marriages today that are just fall apart, right? Not many people meet their wife on January and marry them in March or whatever it was, and still, what?
Give me 8 months, is all.
All right, and still stay married to them, right? Wow, that happens.
We did better than that.
You did.
Yeah, we went from September to January.
4 months?
She got me, and she
4 months.
Well, that's a good thing.
That's not even one hunting season, huh?
Had you guys ever met before? Just 4 months later.
I fell in love with her first sight. But
She's still yet to fall in love with you?
I had to convince her. I
Oh my goodness. All right. This is good. Okay, but this is all true, right? This is all. There we go. Verse 4. And he answered and said to them, this is Jesus answering the Pharisees. He's like going, here we go again, right? He answered and said unto them, he says, have ye not read? Meaning what? These are the scribes. These are the guys who should know the scripture. Have you not read that he which made them, meaning what? Men and women, male, female, right? Adam and Eve, exactly. In the Garden of Eden. You hit it. Beginning, made them male and female, and said, and this is uppercase, referring to the Old Testament, Deuteronomy. For this cause shall a man leave father and mother, shall cleave to his wife, and they twain shall be one flesh. Right? Now, I'm going to say some things here, and I know that I hope I'm right. But you know, I go to YouTube every now and then. I do it every day. That's part of my job. I have to, right? But every now and then I get, distracted by. I saw this guy was in this accident. This kid, he's in Montana, and he was a construction. He was 18 years old. You might have seen this, and he was driving a skid loader or something, and a car came over, hit him, knocked him over the hill. Skid loader fell on him, broke him right here. Cut his arm off, so he has one arm, and this has been like a couple years ago. I mean, just basically killed his body from here down. And he has a girlfriend. I don't know anything about their relationship, but there ain't a thing sexual about their relationship from here to eternity, right? So that contract between man and woman, it's not just a sexual thing. It's a contract for life. Thick and thin, right? Oh, this hurts, right? I'm going to have to say it. Like, death do us part, right? Let's continue. Verse 7. They say unto him, these are the Pharisees, right? They say unto him and say, why did Moses then command to give a writing of divorcement? We talked about that. And to put her away. In other words, why, if this divorce thing is not, as easy, right, as we make it, because it actually has become very, very prominent in that day and age. Why would Moses say that? I mean, Moses is he just over there just making up laws just for, while he's whittling or something? No, he's got a serious job there to take care of what? God's people who continue to be disappointing God, right? Okay. He saith unto them, this is Jesus, saith unto them, he said, Moses, because of the hardness of your hearts, because the hardness of your hearts, because the hardness of your hearts suffered you, he tolerated you to put away your wives, but from the beginning it was not so. Now, conclusion, if I don't see anything else here today, was divorce was something introduced way back as far as Moses, right? Primarily to protect the Hebrew women, right? But in God's original creation of mankind, man and woman were created, joined together to be one forever. Okay? I say unto you, this is Jesus. I say unto you, he said, whosoever shall put away his wife, okay? Because he knows it's happening. And they'll use Moses' law to justify it. Not saying that he was going contrary to what God expected, right, at that point in time. We know what Moses had to do in his... You raising your hand? Yeah, I want to ask. Okay. He was, in this particular text, he's addressing the male community. Yeah. Sorry, guys. Right? But, now, it doesn't mean things haven't changed over time, right? But true, because the hardest of their hearts, because of your lack of compassion, love, knowledge, understanding of who created you, how you were created, how marriage, right, becomes. Right. Yeah, what we're going to hear now, at this point, Christ is going to do, he's going to basically say, okay, you guys who have been given, I guess, this mercy, right, to go through this written process in order to divorce your wives, right, who they think is basically acceptable for anything, right? Christ says in verse 9, I say unto you, whosoever shall put away his wife, except it be for fornication. That means, right, one thing. That's all it says. It's Jesus' words. I didn't write. Except it be for fornication. Now, let's define fornication. It's a tough teaching spot, right? What's fornication? You're married. Fornication. Primarily sexual sins, right? Adultery, homosexuality, bestiality. You ever heard that word? Bestiality? It's gross, right? Believe it or not, that's fornication, right? In the relationship, say for a man and a woman. Oh.
Something I heard question. The harden of the heart covers the gag. That means that you're not living with God in your heart.
Right. Exactly. Yeah, you're aware of that. So, let me continue. So stick with me here. This is Jesus. Whosoever shall put away his wife, or divorce his wife, except it be for fornication, get this, and shall marry another, committeth adultery. Whosoever marrieth her which is put away doth commit adultery. Tough words, isn't it? Yeah. It is tough. It's tough. In today's society, it's hard to accept, right? These are the words of Jesus, so you don't have much of a choice, right, to accept it. So let's quickly review what he's saying. Man and woman, right? Something goes wrong, right? And let's say divorce, in Jesus' definition, is justified, right? They divorce. And let's say it was a justified divorce based on fornication. Now, don't forget, in those day and age, fornication was a pretty serious sin. Most likely you got stoned anyway, right? So it wasn't like you had a whole lot of hope for forgiveness there, even in Jesus' day, right? But let's say man and woman married, something happens, right? Something is breaking that contract. Something has got in. The devil has got in to break that relationship. So a divorce happens, right? At this point in time, divorce happens, woman is separated from her husband, right? Don't marry that woman. Don't marry her.
Why do you keep saying at this certain time? It's still that way today if we're a follower of Jesus.
All I'm doing is when I'm reading this text, yeah, I'm not saying, I'm not let me try to answer that question better.
Yeah, I know, it still applies today.
I'm not saying it doesn't. No. Yeah, let me correct myself. I'm just saying in this particular moment when Christ is reading this, yeah, I'm not saying it isn't, that things have changed today. Now, society have changed things today, right? Society today is not much different than society was then, right? When they say, well, you lost the TV remote. Every time I go to find it, this relationship's not going to work out.
We could almost divorce our husbands for the remote.
Exactly.
Wait a minute. That's being chauvinistic. Huh? Okay, but you're right. Yeah, I'm not saying what Jesus is saying here applies and never changes, right? It has not changed. I agree with you, Nancy. Totally. Hopefully, I didn't come across that way.
Well, that's what I know.
No, there you go.
The Lord, it does, I mean, that's how they,
Yeah.
yeah.
So, if this guy and this woman divorce, and he's guilty, then he better not marry him either.
That doesn't seem fair either. I mean, seriously, if you think about it. If he cheated on me and we divorced, I'm saying we're done. And now I have to live the rest of my life unless he dies alone?
I think what he's saying. Speak. Well,
Maybe this could reference, if you put away your wife and you have sex with another person, you're committing adultery. And even though you're not having sex with your wife's over here, even though maybe that divorce isn't final or permissible in God's eyes, and say 2 years later she has sex with another man, or 6 months later she has sex with another man, she's committing adultery too because she technically has a husband already. So
yeah.
maybe in a way it is trying to give that perspective.
Well, I think what Nancy's saying, she's just misunderstanding.
Yeah.
If he committed adultery on you, you are free of that relationship.
Yeah.
Well, I can move on, but it says
Jim, buddy. No, let me.
until death, until he dies. I'm not.
No, let me read it. Let me read this slowly. Whosoever shall put away his wife. Now remember, at that point in time, most, if not all, the putting away was being done by the men. Okay?
It doesn't reference the women either.
Right.
They don't get to put away their husband.
Not in the book of Matthew. Whosoever shall put away his wife, meaning a man putting away his female companion, except it be for fornication. He says, whosoever shall put away his wife and shall marry another, except fornication, being there, commits adultery.
Let's bring in the spiritual side too. That if you cheat on your wife, you're cheating on God.
Yeah. Well, let me ask you this. If we, and I'm not a marriage counselor, Um, if these things enter into a relationship that God's created and put together as one, what? Let no man tear apart, right, what God's put together. So if something comes into that relationship, then tears it apart, then it's not good, right?
Well, you know what we've been studying? The devil's after you all the time.
Well, I'm not saying it'll happen. But let's continue.
Turn to the Bible and
Now, his disciples are bothered by this, right? They're all pretty much young guys, right? Anyway. But they say in verse 10, he says, his disciples say unto him, he says, if the case of a man be so with his wife, he said, it's not good to marry. You know what? I wrote this down. He says, marriage is not worth the risk if divorce is not an option. Help me, Nancy.
Well, I think we're just, I'm still not getting it.
I think we have to remember, like, or remind ourselves that this was written so long ago by different cultures and use of different language, so that's why I said what I said. It's because, you know, we have marriage for marriage, but then they reference marriage as just sex, and when that sex has taken place, you are married, you are one, you are a couple. So sometimes we have to look up different words and what they mean in different cultures and
It's
step
pretty
back and
basic
look
and
at
black and
it.
white there.
Seems pretty easy,
Yeah.
doesn't it?
So I'm saying,
we can't change the
no,
Right.
I don't want to change it.
It would help
I
us.
just don't understand why I have, I say I, but
Use yourself, that's fine.
okay. Why I have to spend the rest of my life without a companion because he cheated on me and put me away.
It's not saying
He's
you.
not dead yet.
It's not saying you do. If he's the cause of this,
Cause.
then he's the problem.
But it's, no.
Okay,
It says except for fornication.
except fornication.
Okay, you say that I'm free, but look, well, hang on, let me find it.
Because you're divorced.
Let her find what
divorce
she's.
from the hardness of his heart unless he changes.
Only if there was no reason.
And I say unto you, whosoever shall put away his wife, except it for fornication, and shall marry another, committed adultery. I got that, but then it goes on to saying, whosoever married her, which is put away, does commit adultery. So,
Okay, so if you are put away in Jesus' definition, right, or limitation, right,
So,
then what?
I think Paul kind of gives us some clarity on this in 1 Corinthians 7. Because Paul talks about divorce in a little bit different context. He's talking about an unbelieving spouse leaving a spouse who is a believer. So if I were an unbeliever and I decided to leave Clarissa, this is what Paul has to say. It says, but if the unbelieving depart, let him depart. A brother or sister is not under bondage in such cases, but God hath called us to peace. So I think the same would apply. If she would no longer be under bondage if I left her,
okay, good.
the same would apply in the case of adultery if I were to go and leave her for another woman. Because that's how I would do it.
Now, you would be the one committing adultery, wouldn't you?
Yes, I would be the one,
Not her.
theoretically.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, I think too, this kind of goes back to not just the divorce side of things, but how like important marriage really is.
You're-
Like it's a very serious thing.
Yep.
And I think that kind of we're glossing over that too. It's not something you just haphazardly go into. It's got to be God ordained.
You
So
got it.
If it's not truly God ordained, then you're off on the wrong foot to begin with. But if it's truly something God put in your life, that should be an issue.
And remember, Nancy, and remember, at this point in time, at the point in time when Moses put that law in place, he was protecting the women, particularly because they were the ones getting abused.
Well, I understand it now,
right.
like what Bobby said.
Mhm.
I'm walking with the Lord, or the person's walking with the Lord and her spouse isn't, I should not be. So I understand it. Yeah, that's good.
And that's where the hardness of the heart
Real, we'll read that, let's read that first verse,
Oh, wasn't
9.
it back in the day when?
And I say unto you, whosoever shall put away his wife, except it be for fornication. So if it's fornication, you're allowed to get remarried again.
Well, wait a minute. Not the one who fornicated.
Well, Nancy could get married again because if I do that, she's gonna kill me.
Yeah, that's true.
Death to his part.
Yeah.
You'll get stoned, yes.
If it's adultery, they'll stone you too.
Well, isn't it back in the day when Moses would, they would actually accuse their wife of that, and then the priest would say, here, drink this poison, and if you don't die, you must be telling the truth, you didn't do anything. That's how the women were getting off. Isn't that so?
Yeah.
And then if they somehow survived the poison, which is probably not likely.
It,
That's how they
tough subject. Not that tough, really, is it? Bottom line is marriage, like Sam said, I just repeat it. And it's what this, I didn't come up with that. Guy wrote down, he says, marriage is, that's what he's saying, the disciples are saying. Marriage is not worth it if divorce is not an option, right? He said, if when I get married and I base it upon the same rules that God did when he created man and woman, then I'll live eternally, right? With this woman through what? Thick and thin.
This is where it comes to rightly dividing the word.
Hmm?
We're talking about a physical unity thing, and we're trying to justify it by Christian way. What we have to be concerned about is if we're born again, serving the Lord, and we commit these things, then that's where the real penalty comes in.
Yeah, well, these Pharisees, they're not.
But the other way, it didn't matter because
Right.
they're not living for the Lord.
Yeah.
That's just a law that was
That's right.
made. Just like the Pharisees did when they didn't want to do something, they made a law so they didn't have to.
Or to find themselves blameless.
What'd she say?
Find them. Go ahead.
They would enact those laws to find themselves blameless.
Yeah. They make one law to, right, keep them from that. Let's continue. Think about this. We're not necessarily done, but you've got the whole 9 minutes to think about this. Verse 11. He said unto them, to his disciples, okay? This is an interesting little piece of scripture here. He said unto them, all men cannot receive this saying, save they to whom it is given. So what's he saying? This guy, he said, some men just aren't. They never get married. I'm talking righteously speaking. They don't use that as an excuse to whore around, right? They just don't get married. They're just not marrying men. It's not in their genes, right? That doesn't make them homosexual. That just means they're just not married. All men cannot receive this. However, if you are the marrying type, you better listen and obey, right? What Christ has said. Verse 12 says this. Christ says, for there are some eunuchs, okay, which were so born from their mother's womb. Okay. And there are some eunuchs which are made eunuchs of men. And there be eunuchs which have made themselves eunuchs for the kingdom of heaven's sake. He that is able to receive it, let him receive it. Now, why the heck is he talking about eunuchs? He's using this as an example. All right. Eunuchs was, right, emasculated men for various reasons, right? If you're captured from Israel, taken over to another country, and they need some guy to look after the girls, They don't want some guy in there who's going to be a threat to the girls, right? They fix him up, just like, right? Some are made eunuchs. Some are born that way. Some do it themselves. Right. Why would they do that themselves? To totally separate themselves from those temptations, right? In order to work for God, right? For instance, there are, and I'm not going to mention names, I know, I've heard of men in the ministry that have done that specifically for that purpose, to dedicate totally their life to serving the Lord. No distractions, no family, no girls, no late nights out. Just to be closer to the Lord. He that is able to receive it, he said, let him receive it. And I am actually running out of time. I'm going to read these next few verses. Then there were brought unto him little children. This is to Jesus. That he put his hands on them and prayed. And the disciples rebuked them. Rebuked who? Rebuked the people for bringing their kids. What are you bringing your kids around here? This is Jesus, right? He doesn't have time for this nonsense. As young as infants. Jesus said, verse 14, he said, suffer little children, forbid them not to come unto me, for of such is the kingdom of heaven. What's he saying? Well, these little children, I mean, obviously, remember last week we were talking about babes being reborn, right? In this case, it seems to be talking literally about young children. And guess what? Heaven is full. We'll be full of them, right? From what? Even from the age where they haven't even come out of the womb. Innocent. One word they use in here is that, remember that word we throw around real sloppy, like accountability, which is not necessarily anywhere specifically, right, unless you're in a different, Bible. Remember they used to say, well, accountability meant you're at the age where you know right from wrong. I tell you, I've got grandkids. They're now 12 years old. There's something special about them and the age that they are that I have to believe. If they happen to leave this world, right? They haven't had the opportunity or the understanding, right, to commit sin, right? Now, do they disobey their parents? I don't know if they're doing it on purpose or they're just, until we teach them, Jim. That's what we have to do. But anyway, Jesus said, he said, forbid them not. Come to me, I'll bless them. I'll heal them. And don't forget, when you get to heaven, you might be really surprised.
Well, we got a good example right here.
Tell me, buddy.
Micah. Micah was
4 years old.
born again at 4 years old, and he dedicated his life up to now to serve the Lord. That's proof of what Jesus says, bid them not to come to me.
Of such is the kingdom of heaven. And he laid his hands on them and departed. And I'm out of time. So you have to read the rest of this chapter by yourself. Actually, chapter 16, verses 16 through 30. Golly, man, I got half of it done, Judy. What's that? No. That's good, though. Would you say, Jeff? Why we should bring the kids to church? She said, a good example why you should bring your kids to church, right? It's responsibility, isn't it?
children get to go to heaven, but it's still in that learning ability.
Yeah.
That's why
And that's where the country falls.
I'm not saying that.
You don't say nothing?
I think